All right. Well, we are waiting to see if we go live, which is always the best part of Soccerwise. So thank you for everyone who's watching me right now by accident.
Just you.
Tom is very nervously making his way back. Wow, we are already live, Tom.
It
We just made it
worked.
back on my video. Yeah. Okay. Hang on one sec, and I'll get us going then. Oh, you feel that right there. The beat drops. Soccerwise is live. We are on. We're ready to rock. We're ready to rip. David Goss, Tom Bogert with you here for week 2 of Soccerwise. We exist. We are part of the soccer conversation in North America. I say North America. Why? Because, of course, we're half Canadian. And what a huge night it is for Canada. Copa America, game 2 for the Canadian men's national team. We're going to preview that at the end of this show. We're going to talk USMNT a little bit as well and Copa in general. But we've got a ton to talk about in MLS. We've got Weston McKennie rumors. Yes, to an MLS team. We're not talking just national team there. Luchi Gonzalez has been let go as manager of San Jose. Huge transfer window conversations to have. Thiago Almada as big a transfer potentially in Major League Soccer history. There are reports and rumors out there. Tom is going to tell me whether they are reports or rumors. Moise Bombito as well. Austin FC signs a center back. We say goodbye to Aiden Morris. Not better than Columbus clearly can, because it was a beautiful moment this weekend, but we will chime in on our own, and we will finish up talking Copa America as the Jackhammers in the park behind me start going off at the perfect time. Tom, how you doing?
I'm good. I didn't know Jackhammers was a new nickname for a team that you wanted to talk about. I was like, is there a new expansion club in Championship or USL League One? But nope. It was
I'll
just
throw
real
that
life
out there as a
Jackhammers.
name, though.
Not bad. Could be worse.
Because you get a lot of these, I don't know about you, but a lot you get asked the like, where would you build a team? What would you do with it? Blah, blah, blah. And Jackhammers, it's a new one. It's something to do.
Something to do. It's an action.
I'm very in favor of the like, well, I'll just stamp my name right now. I'm anti-United's, FC's, SC's,
Yeah.
cities, whatever. I'm in favor of just like fun stuff. So it normally needs to be associated to the city, maybe a Pittsburgh team, right? Because isn't that like steel and construction and all that stuff? This is showing how much I know about Pittsburgh.
Cook
Yeah,
us.
thank you. And all things like that. But we are excited to talk a little MLS with all of you. We're excited for the show. I got a 3-1 victory in co-ed last night to start a new season. Playing into the sunset, didn't matter. The ball was moving, the ball was flowing. The offseason acquisition I made, 1 goal, 1 assist.
There you go.
That's how you impact a team. That's what you do.
There you go.
And I potentially recruited a second player while out on the field to potentially play on a different team of mine. You play later in the week, right?
Always working, Goss. Hold on. I love this as having to be the head coach and sporting director of my own teams as well. That's the fun part, is the recruitment rather than chasing dudes. Hey, did you pay yet? Hey, did you get my Venmo request? Hey, do you have ref fee? Come on. So the fun part is the new signings. What I did last week was get one of my college friends, who's one of the best players that I get to consistently still play with, because he loves me so much. And because he's a psychopath, he drives 45 minutes plus to a 47-minute game. I got him to commit back to the team, and now we got our winger center forward back. We've got a strong team, and we got a bye this week, so I'm a little disappointed.
I recruited a player last week, and immediately we have a bye this week as well. And it's like, you lose all the momentum. I get it for these transfers, right? Like, you're not going to wait for the summer. You got to get Chucky done now just so he's committed. Like, you start to see that side of things, you know?
Yeah. We were trying to sell shirt sponsorships too, and my friend Alex Noriega didn't quite move the needle, but maybe Tommy Scoops will.
I think you need to talk a little bit to Tom Penn about how to run a business and what to do going forward and how to build your team. Let's roll into this. Jump into the comments, of course. We're going to be both in there, both on Twitch and on Twitter. If you're not listening live, don't forget you can go to Patreon, subscribe, and you can be in the Discord with us. The mailbag show that came out as the weekend review on Sunday night at like 10:30 p.m., I think, or maybe Monday morning at 5 a.m., whenever I actually set it to publish, because I was talking to myself for 4 hours on Sunday like a crazy person. You can affect that on Discord. So that's where you get all your comments in. Really fun first weekend on Discord, just talking about the games as you're watching them, both NWSL, MLS, national team. Tom, I know this isn't your bag. NWSL unhinged right now. San Diego fired a Shield-winning coach a week after a new GM took over. And then Bay FC had their GM, Lucy Rushton, former DC United GM, resign like 6 hours after that. So I am so excited to do tomorrow's show with Jordan to talk all about that and all things NWSL. But let's go into MLS because there are firings there as well. San Jose, not like the easiest place to work, clearly right now, as Luchi Gonzalez has been let go by the San Jose Earthquakes. It has been a tough season. San Jose, last place in Major League Soccer, 11 points. They are 7 points worse than the last place team in the Eastern Conference, and I believe 3 points behind SKC in the West. They have the worst defense in Major League Soccer by 7 goals. They are 2-6-1 at home. And this weekend, of course, they lost 6-2 to LAFC. That seemed to be the final nail in the coffin. So for the second time, Luchi Gonzalez let go from an MLS club, previously FC Dallas. He then went to the World Cup working under Greg Berhalter, basically as a replacement for Nico Estevez, who swapped in the other direction. Then he went over to San Jose and now finished at San Jose going forward. What was your first reactions and sort of how have you digested this since?
Yeah, it's obvious. I mean, from, trying to report it out and hearing about it, a lot of the commentary from people I talked to was like, oh, has it happened yet? Like it wasn't like if, it was more of when. And it even felt that way as like 2 weeks ago. They did get a little bit of a bump when Hernan Lopez signed, and he looks like a good signing, but guess what? He can't play center back. He can't play in the goal. I do feel for Luchi Gonzalez. I'm gonna, the positive view of him is that they didn't have their first choice back six, if you want to call it, essentially the whole year. Their goalkeeper Daniel, who was one of the best 3 goalkeepers in the league last year, was bad to start the season. Then he got hurt. William Yarbrough has been awful, and so is Jacobson. They have, again, they're 51 goals conceded, but 34 expected goals against. That is not a good number. That is still like third worst in the league, but it's not catastrophic. San Jose have played 3 goalkeepers this year. Statistically, those 3 are the worst, second worst, and 4th worst goalkeepers in all of MLS, which is pretty impressive considering Daniel and Jacobson haven't played that many games to rack up. This is a cumulative score. This isn't a per 90. On per 90 basis, they're the worst 3 in the league. After shots on target, post-shot XG versus actual goals against. It's a mouthful, but it's the best metric for is your goalie good at stopping shots, yes or no? Their goalkeepers alone saved 15 fewer goals than they were expected. 15 goals. It is insane. If you look at the rest of their numbers, though, like all of the numbers are bad. Possession, second worst in the league, which again, that can go either way, but it's not like they were playing, on a counter or anything. Field tilt, which is the number of final third passes you hit, second worst in MLS. Passes per defensive actions. How often are you defending? So if you don't have the ball, you should be higher up in that metric. 23rd in MLS, 22nd in shot conceded, and 23rd in expected goals per shot conceded. They were giving up a ton of shots, and those shots were higher quality, right? Everything is bad no matter how you look at it. But, again, it's like Luchi, the manager can't say, hey, goalkeeper, save better shots. Why didn't you try this tactic, stupid, right?
Yeah.
So on that end, I feel bad for Luchi, but on the other end, it was obviously time. Chris Leach gave a press conference yesterday, and quote, this is a results-oriented business. We weren't getting any results. We had to go in this direction, right? He tried to strike the tone of, we're thankful for Luchi. We're not trying to kick him when he's down, kick him when he's out. And Luchi took this job because of his relationship with Chris Leach, despite some people in his life suggesting, maybe you shouldn't take this job. It's an uphill battle. And I think that's where I want to go to next. And I think that you as well. While I think that this firing was on merit, I do think that they needed to make a change, not making too many excuses for Luchi Gonzalez. What would Tata Martino have done? What would Wilfred Nancy have done with this team? I don't know. It's all hypothetical, but I don't know that this team would have been, top 4 in the West with Wilfred Nancy, right? So on one hand, it's completely fair. This is result-oriented business. No excuses, whatever. This change had to happen. But the nuance here is, what was Luchi supposed to do?
Yeah, I think I like the way you broke it down. In my mind, it goes into two conversations, which I think you did both of them. One is, how does a season unravel to a point where this is necessary? Like 7 unbeaten, 2-6-1 at home. I think you talked about it. The goalkeeping, a lot of the possession stats for them, a lot of the XG underlying is just telling you what we're seeing. The biggest thing I have with this San Jose team, and as I cull through some of the stats and go deeper on some of those, even the bottom 5 stuff is what it is. It's that they're middle of the road everywhere else. They don't do anything. There's nothing you walk away from a game with and say, this is where San Jose tried to dictate the game. So they don't dictate the game out of possession, and you see it. I mean, it's obviously a brutal one against LAFC, but there's almost no ball pressure at any time. And so LAFC always has time to pick their heads up, find the next pass, create openings, or shoot. But then in possession, you mentioned the field tilt. They don't dominate the ball in any one specific area, which then is what leads to their chances. They play very middle of the road to passive, and there is no point in which you can lean back and say, all right, we can lose games here, but we'll win games here. And that's how this team has progressed as this year's gone along. That's where the answer comes in. Well, what would Will Fernandez do? Well, he would try and look at the pieces, is what we understand, and say, this is where I think I can create an effect. This is where we can dominate. I'm okay giving up chances here or losing battles here if we're going to win ours here. And overall, in MLS, if you do enough, you're probably going to make the postseason. In fairness, Luchi did make the postseason year 1. Extended version of it, whatever you want to call it. But this year it has completely fallen off. And I think that's where you talk about the goalkeeping issues and some of what they would probably call luck with some of the odd red cards timed and all this stuff, injuries as well, to have not gone through. But for San Jose, I think looking forward, you have to say, if we're not going to have the best players on the field, like we have to make a decision of who we are and what we want to be good at. And they've never made that decision. In fairness, they've never made that decision under Chris Leach. So this doesn't go all the way to Luchi anymore. And they've also never made this decision under their ownership. This is one of the cheapest teams in Major League Soccer. And it's one of the cheapest teams, I want to make sure we make this point, not on roster build. Because I think where the idea with Luchi Gonzalez came from is when Matias Almada was there and they were too cheap to buy him out, even though they'd given him a good contract, it felt like a lot of the front office and focus of the club shifted to the academy and said, what can we do while Almada controls the first team? And they rebuilt the academy in one of the best soccer markets in the world and in Major League Soccer. And I think that's where you said, okay, now Luchi comes in with his experience in Dallas, and now we take this to the next level. They have not doubled down on that. They don't have permanent facilities for their academy. They don't have setups in satellite market areas towards Sacramento and Oakland to have players playing consistently and be connected to the club. They don't provide some of the services that some of the other big teams in MLS provide for these young players to make sure that they can be focused on soccer or want to join them. And so, like, overall, it's all bad.
Yeah, that's well put. Like, because sometimes there's a dog whistle of we want to focus on youth development and we want to do this. Because the other side of that is we don't want to spend $6 million to sign Hernan Lopez. That's usually what it means. And like when San Jose said we want to be Philadelphia Union of the West, that's what I took it from for them. Because hell, even Dallas are spending big transfer fees on players. Even before Peter Musa, there was Alan Velasco. They took the funds that they got and reinvested in the team. And you can say that about San Jose, to be fair, this year. The $6 million for Hernan Lopez. And last year, it was a club record at the time. A small one, but still a club record for Carlos Gruezo at like $2.8 million, something like that. But when you talk about the youth, they have a lot of talented players and surprisingly haven't really broken through. The one that's disappointing to me, we talk about goalkeepers, and Fripp brought it up in the YouTube chat, Emi Ochoa. They've completely blown the Emi Ochoa situation. He's out of contract after the year. Like, because I
was calling him 6'7" last year and saying he was the future.
And he is. He's one of the has been one of the most highly rated goalkeeping prospects coming through academies in MLS. He's like, you can't let a kid like that get to the last year of his contract. In the winter, if he was making it clear, I want to, wait, then you have to trade him. You have to trade him. You have to do something. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, unless that they crazily overpay him. And if you're Emi Ochoa, you probably want to go somewhere else anyway. Because, like, if this season, 3 of the 4 worst goalkeepers in MLS, you still haven't gotten a chance. Like, so many teams in Mexico want him. I can't overstate how many teams are interested in him from Mexico. Yeah. It's a Mexican youth international with a U.S. youth international doing that. It's a youth international goalkeeper for free at 18 or 19, whatever he is. So they've blown it on that one. So we all kind of thought Cruz Medina was going to be the next one to come through. He hasn't been there. Diego Luna was in their academy, and they more or less picked Cruz Medina. And I get it, but like, why not both is kind of my point. And who knows the inner workings of how that really went. But you just kind of go on down the list. Like, while they've done some really good stuff with the academy, and it hasn't translated to the first team. And
also,
particularly hurtful.
Fidel Barajas out there.
Oh, that was the other one I was looking for. Yeah. He was another one too. And again, you don't like. I don't want to give Chelsea credit for their business decisions and youth development because they don't do it right. But like, they don't just go, no, we have one number 10 in our system. We're good for the next 10 years or the next 4 years. We don't want to block him. You can have more than one really talented young player. So again, like there's that. There's just so many things that are up in the air in the San Jose team. As you said, on the field, the identity was we're going to try to let Christian Espinoza and Hernan Lopez beat you. But Jeremy Ebobisse regressed. Amal Pellegrino, the signing didn't make a ton of sense at the time. And doesn't make any sense now. Carlos Gruezo hasn't lived up to the price tag. You just kind of go on down the list. Last year, they made the playoffs. Daniel was incredible. And this year, he was horrific, and as were the rest of the goalkeepers. And that's not the only thing that changed year over year, but it kind of takes further away from last year of like, oh, that was kind of the thing that they did best last year. And you kind of pull out that Jenga piece, and it all doesn't just fall. It absolutely implodes.
Yeah. Yeah, there are individuals. So, and in MLS, you have to say, like, a lot of the roster build's not on Luchi Gonzalez, right? It's on the front office. Carlos Gruezo was clearly an ask by him. I think it made sense. The idea is like you need a player who can play at a certain level at that position to compete in Major League Soccer. Felt like it worked last year. I think the Pellegrino one, it was out of order in like you needed Hernan Lopez on the roster to make Amal Pellegrino useful. You signed Pellegrino and then you didn't sign Lopez for another 6 months. And so now you've got a guy who's pretty much just a finisher alongside Jeremy Ebobisse, who's heavily at best just a finisher, playing off of no one. And that was Christian Espinoza's problems over the last few years. I had a friend send me sort of a breakdown, good friend of the show, Bobby Warshaw, who you know very well. He sort of contextualizes MLS teams, and this was the term he used. You've got elite key core players. So the idea is with DPs and MLS, you should have 3 elite, game-changing, match-winning players, whatever you want to call it, key players, which are players that could win games at their position based off the MLS level, and then core, which is like, won't lose you a game, good starters. I go through this San Jose roster, now that Luchi's gone, and that's not the conversation anymore. I think Christian Espinoza is elite. I don't think he's a number 1. But in terms of 3 DPs on a roster, he is good enough as one of those 3. I would call him a 1B or a 2A, whatever you want to use inside of that. Do you think Hernan Lopez is one of those 3 as well?
Yeah, he's one of those 3, but like it's whether or not he can be the best player on a really good MLS team. And I would lean probably not, but like the idea is, and again, I like to be optimistic and like I don't want to. I think we spend too much time looking at what these guys can't do rather than, okay, like tell me what they can do and let's kind of build around that. I think that there's a world in which him and Espinoza, if they're both firing with a really good finisher ahead of them as well, like that is a good enough attack, but like that's held by a lot of ifs and a lot of all 3 of these guys need to be playing at, 7.5 out of 10 all of the time.
Yeah.
But so I think Hernan Lopez is absolutely one of those 3, but it has to be a specific system because he doesn't do a ton off the ball. And again, Thiago Almada is in like the bottom 8% of any defensive metric in MLS. Ricky Pooch is in the bottom 1%. Guess what? They're fine on winning teams, right? Like, so as long as he does enough on the ball, you can get away with that in MLS. But that's something that you need to plan around. You need to have Gaston Brugman and Marquis Delgado behind him. You need to have Bartosz Slisz behind him. You need to have all of these other things. He can be a piano player, and Christian Espinoza, I think, works hard enough that I wouldn't necessarily call him like a plus defender, but he's not a big negative. Yeah. So these are the things. Like, and I'm going to transition just a little bit to Henry Elliott in the YouTube chat. For a team that needs to fix everything, where do you even start? That is a great question. For me, like, Chris Leach, and you have to say, we believe this roster is better than what we've shown, and that's what he said in his press comments. We made this change to try to get better right now. But, like, what they need to do is figure out the best way to build around Espinoza and Hernan Lopez. And completely, like, they need to get assets this summer, honestly, and then completely overhaul everything in the winter.
So that's where I go in this, which is I think those are the only two key players in this team. I don't think you have the third. And then when you go
Definitely not.
And then when you go into the core players, or sorry, those are the only two elite. When you go into the key players, now you get into the conversation about Jackson Ewell, Jeremy Abobisi, I would say Carlos Acapo, but never healthy. I mean, probably no one else would say anyone on the back line. And then maybe Amal Pellegrino.
I would say no to everything but Ewell there.
Okay, so here's what I think. Based off the way MLS looks right now, I would shop Ewell to get stuff in.
I agree.
To get better with a new roster. I think Ewell is good enough, and I think he'll make a difference on another team, and that might hurt today. But in the long run, it might just be like, okay, let's clear as much of this as we can under a next regime, and let's move stuff on. And I really think he's the only one who clearly fits in that convo. And then when you get down to core, like there are pieces on this team that you can use in a starting team where in 3 years, if you have changed a lot of it, you can look back and say a Carlos Acapo is a fine starter in this team. Paul Maurice still a squad player that we can move around and use and whatever. But that's kind of really it in this group. Nico Tsakaris is the other one. He's not going to go anywhere because he's under contract for 2 more years and he's your homegrown linchpin thing at this point, whatever. That's probably really the only thing you can work with. So to the question of like, what does this roster do? I think you kind of dump out here at the rest of the year to be able to build up assets to go forward. And I think when you look at a player like Jackson Ewell, we've got a question from the legend Eric Gonzalez in the chat. Like, how do the Red Bulls replace Frankie Amaya? That's a name you could throw in there if they're worried about Peter Stroud's health. I think Minnesota, obviously, with him being a native, and now with Kervin Arriaga leaving, is that another name you could bring in there? I think Austin's always looking for decent soccer players because that team's really thin. RSL could be looking for central midfield help. I think there's a lot of places you could put them, and you could get assets inside of MLS to help you a little bit because they're not a team that's going to go out and sign Thiago Almada. Like, they need MLS assets to start to operate more like the Colorado Rapids, where they get MLS talent in, and that's how they build. And are they able to pick off pieces where, let's say, if for the Revs, I talked about it on Monday, Seth Mann putting out there like Thomas Chankalai might not be available the rest of the year. If they decide to put him on the IR, bring in a fourth DP, they're going to be cap tied at the start of next year. Can San Jose be a team that has an open DP spot in cap space that can steal players like that, like what Philly did with Julian Carranza when Inter Miami was in a bad spot? That's probably where San Jose needs to live right now. And so they need to set themselves up in a way to be able to do that. Ian Russell taking over as interim head coach, I don't know about the conversations you have. He always comes up on lists when you ask about potential coaches. There was a lot of happiness, I know, inside of San Jose for the work he did when they were running Reno as a team in USL and the success he had. And his name kind of always gets bounced around. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's in a situation where he's trying out for the job, whether it's a fake quote from an owner or not that we had in Dallas. I think that's a genuine opportunity. Is there any other obvious names for you, or is it the same list we just said with Dallas?
Yeah, it's the same list with Dallas. And after watching Peter Luchine, his first couple games, I might be ready to say maybe I was a little bit too dismissive and mean on the fake quote thing. But like, I don't know, it's just that's what they say in all of these. But again, maybe I was a little bit too dismissive. But yeah, for me, like, but I think that this job is so in the hierarchy of open jobs, and for the purpose of this conversation, Nashville, BJ Callahan, taking them off the board.
Yeah.
For the jobs that are available right now, Atlanta United is obviously the most attractive. Then I think Dallas is a pretty sizably ahead of this San Jose job. Like, if you're
because of the roster,
yeah, because and like as crazy as it's going to sound, I believe more in Dallas to spend a little bit more, and I like, and that's again, it's a funny sentence to say out loud given all the critiques we've had of Dallas over the years. But I think that's just the truth. So between current talent and just my belief of what's going to happen in the future, I would take Dallas sizably ahead of San Jose. But guess what? There's 29 of these jobs. This was the argument that some people tried to make to Luchi Gonzalez. And the other side of this is, well, this is one of 29. So while you might not be shopping for a Tata Martino or whoever the best kind of candidate would be at like available right now, you're not going to offer it to 8 guys and they're all going to say no, right? Like,
right. This
is one of 29 and somebody's going to take it, and you could still get a very good coach. It doesn't have to be a Tata. And like for this organization. I don't even think it makes sense for it to be somebody like Tata Martino or somebody like Matias Almeida or somebody with that cachet and everything else that comes with it. They want to be development, right? And again, maybe it's a dog whistle for wanting to spend a little bit less money, but Troy Lezane went to DC United. That could be a guy who makes a lot of sense. Like somebody like that profile makes a lot of sense for San Jose.
The names we've thrown out there before, Danny Cruz, Ben Pierman, and USL Championship. We mentioned Eric Quill with Dallas. I think for this job, I think Robin Fraser is one that comes back into this conversation. He has a clear style, the way he wants to play. It made zero sense in Colorado. It didn't work. You could try it here, though, and that's another option. Mark Dos Santos and Ante Razov, I think those names come up in a situation like this and maybe knowing the area a little bit more. And then you're kind of in the same, who are the MLS people that are interested or available. I think Ian Russell honestly makes the most sense. So if there's any sign of like, oh, we've leaned into something, we figured some stuff out, the team's going to play for him going forward, which should, I think, feel a lot like Dallas, which is they've been playing in neutral or third gear, whatever card term you want to use in this one. And getting a new coach, I think, will fire up the players. And if you just open it up and just let the players go a little bit, they should play on the front foot, and you should see some early turnaround similar to Dallas. And so it should feel really positive coming out of this segment of time. And so it should look, I think, at least over the next month or so, like Ian Russell is an option going forward. For Luchi Gonzalez, I wrote in the rundown like immediately, Greg Berhalter, assistant. BJ Callahan, it sounds like, is leaving for Nashville. Luchi and Nico were assistants on the U.S. national team before they took their two most recent head coaching jobs. That just made sense to me. Otherwise, you're probably in a conversation now where I bet every team reaches out and sees if he's interested in being an academy director. Like, I don't think there's a single MLS team that wouldn't try that. I don't know if it's what he'll want to do, but it's clear from his success in Dallas and what he built that he is very good at that. And maybe there's a way you combine that into an assistant coaching role, that sort of bridges over reserve team, 2-team, USL, whatever you want to, or MLS Next Pro plus academy, whatever you want to do.
And one quick note with Luchi, I'm interested to see what the offers would be, how long it would have to take to rehab before getting kind of a managerial offer, if another one's going to come. Because again, maybe after Dallas, San Jose, maybe people just look at him as academy director or assistant coach or whatever. But when he was with an assistant with the national team, there was a team in Belgium that really wanted him. Like there has been some interest in Europe for Luchi Gonzalez, so maybe that's his next step. Who knows? If I'm him, I'm taking a little bit of time. I'm going back to Dallas. I'm saying, San Jose, good luck with the buyout. You owe me every dollar on that contract. I'm just going to hang out for a little while and decide what I want to do next.
I think that makes a ton of sense. The Belgium one, I had heard that as well, was really interesting. Again, it was youth development heavy. Like those types of teams, which outside of Major League Soccer maybe operate in different ways. I love that there's a Cincinnati fan in the chat right now trying to dump Bupenza on the San Jose Earthquakes as the can you take the player that someone else doesn't want move? I don't think they're going to go there, especially contract-wise, with a player like that. But it's sort of the convo that I was having about those opportunities in a spot like that. Also, that can take us to FC Cincinnati, who currently are, give me a word, rumored, report, connected.
Report is fair enough right now.
Reports that they are in communication right now with potentially making Weston McKennie a new designated player signing. This one gave me whiplash when I heard about it. It has since given me whiplash to try and process it in every single way. Just one quick fact, Weston McKennie is one of the main linchpins of the U.S. men's national team. He started 29 Serie A games for Juventus last year. He will turn 26 in August. Tom, what's going on?
Yeah, the interest is real. That's what I can say for certain. The details are proving to be elusive to get. And I will say, in my experience of doing this, when a whole lot of people that you usually talk to stop answering you, that's when you know it's absolutely real, on top of the things that I've heard secondarily. But the way I try to go is just really with ironclad stuff. So again, as far as I'm comfortable going is I know for a fact the interest is real. A subplot of this is that because he was an FC Dallas homegrown and Dallas offered him a homegrown contract that he turned down to go to Schalke, Dallas technically have his right of first refusal. So if Cincinnati were to sign him, or any other MLS team, but Cincinnati, if Cincinnati were to sign him, I mean, first it's going to be a huge hill to convince McKennie, Juventus, all the money that they would have to put into this from a transfer fee. I don't know exactly. Like there was a rumor that they would go up to like 15 million. That's a significant transfer fee. So that would be the third, tied for the third most in MLS history. The contract would have to be one of the highest in the league. And then on top of that, they would need to agree a deal with Dallas. Like Dallas, it's not like they would blow this deal up. And I'm sure if they tried, they would get some pressure from the league or from other places not to. But all of that is to say, as far as I understand, Dallas and Cincy have not discussed specifics in terms of allocation money for his rights. That's something that I think would happen if something was really close. What I know, though, is that Dallas have been told, like, Cincy, hey, we're looking into this, more or less, like, we'll come back to if something's close and let's talk about a deal. So all of that to say is this one has legs. As you said with Whiplash, it's a lot to kind of go through. I've gone back and forth on, like, I can't wrap my head around this as well. And then it's like, all right, I mean, I guess, like, Cincy, you know, everybody thought DP forward, myself included. That's what makes the most sense. But this is more like, screw it. If we can go get Weston McKennie, let's try to go do that and figure it out later. And yeah, I don't really know where else to go from this, but just on terms of the factual reporting stuff, that's what I have. And I can tell you for sure that the smoke is very real. Right. And sorry, one last point that it got kind of taken out of context. There was a report of a visit to FC Cincinnati. He left national team camp. Some people misconstrued that as he left national team camp the day before the Bolivia game. That is absolutely not true. I just want to point that out, that he wasn't, you know, the day before a game just ditching camp for something like that. And I think that's something important to mention, that just so that there's absolutely no shadow of doubt that McKennie wasn't, you know, 18 hours before a game getting on a flight back and forth from Cincinnati.
Okay, love that. Thank you. That's one of the things I was very stressed about going into all of this.
That sounded so sarcastic.
I know. That's one of those things. You're 100% right. People are ridiculous, but let me just, like, in processing this a little bit, it's a weird move, and I think that's where everyone gets the whiplash from. You've been putting out reports, I believe, about Aston Villa, right? He was initially in the swap deal for Douglas Luiz to go to Juventus. What it sounds like is that Weston's camp couldn't come to contract terms with Villa, or whatever the holdup was. He's out of that. Like, that's not an option because he's out of that deal. So you've got a player who speaks German, already played for Schalke, played in the Bundesliga for a while, started 29 games for Juventus, entering the prime of his career, starts every game for the U.S. men's national team, in a conversation with the Champions League team in England, whether it's as the primary piece or not. This feels like out of left field to go to the market he's not from, not one of the glamour markets in Major League Soccer. This feels unexpected. And so I think that's that first reaction is like, what are we talking about here? Then you start to get into it and you remember back to the 2014 World Cup when Michael Bradley came in for big money and MLS made a run on players trying to bring them in to sort of get that bump off the World Cup. And you realize it's the summer of 2024. And like, if you're going to sell a ton of Weston McKennie jerseys, you're going to start doing that now if you're FC Cincinnati. And you look at his contract and like, this is where the soccer world gets confusing. Weston McKennie, compared to a Cincinnati Reds player, doesn't make a ton of money. And if FC Cincinnati thinks they're going to sell jerseys and win games and it's going to be worth it, you can blow him out of the water from a contract point of view. Not that hard for the billionaires we're talking about in Major League Soccer if you're willing to do it. The parts that are tough are, one, convincing him that it's the right move. And two, the way an MLS roster is built, you go to like elite key core, he's got to be one of the three, and he has to be one of the three every single game. If you are going to win another supporter shield, if you're going to do big things, which is what they're trying to do, he has to be that guy every single game. That has not always been the case with Weston McKennie. And so that's one of the question marks. From like a soccer point of view, you mentioned he's not a striker, and that's where we thought he'd go. The other numbers make sense. Like, he is a chance creator. He's a progressive player. He can play in an up-tempo style. He likes to play on the move. He plays in some odd systems where he's played a few different roles. Like, in theory, if an MLS team is going to sign him to a designated player contract, Cincinnati kind of makes sense of like, he could pop up wherever he wants. He doesn't have to break lines consistently with his passing. He can be a back post finisher as well as going out wide and creating chances and clipping balls in, winning it on the counter press, like doing all these different things. That is some of my thoughts. But this has been like really difficult to digest as we're watching him play for the national team and all these different things this summer.
Yeah, and like, so I think that's a valuable part of this conversation, that the idea that he would have to have a more similar like leadership role with Cincinnati that he would with the national team, a more similar, hey, if I suck today, like we're probably not going to win, and that kind of burden that can help a player grow in some ways. I do think that's important. I also, before we get clipped or correctly made fun of, that like obviously for his own personal development, like on the field player development, much better if he was going to the Premier League or going back to the Bundesliga, right? Like I don't think either of us are confusing that.
Okay, let me throw the debate point in there. He won't be that guy on a lot of those teams.
No, none of those teams. Like Aston Villa, he wouldn't have even been a first choice starter, I don't think.
So there's a world in which the best version of Weston McKennie is a player who plays in a setting where the whole team relies on him and he has to play better every single game. And that's his future development. And his future development is not, okay, the Premier League is the best league in the world, and he figures out every single way that he can affect a game at times when he's on the field in that moment. And the future of Weston McKennie is he has to be the leader of a team and have that responsibility and be engaged like that every single day. And that happens for Cincinnati and doesn't happen there. That is the one thing I'll throw out there. And now I'm going to get aggregated and I'm fine with it because like human beings are complex, and the like, let's dumb everything down into like Premier League is best, La Liga is second, Serie A is third, Champions League matters, and that's it, is stupid. And it's not the only way player development works.
I agree with you as well. And like, again, if we're talking about the strictly on field, like I get, and like, look, if he went somewhere where he was literally like almost never playing, or where like when he went to Leeds and the fans were absolutely murdering him, like with fat jokes and criticism, everything else, and then he ends up on the bench. That wasn't great for his development either. But it shows how strong he is mentally. So after that worst period of his career, comes back to Juventus. Everybody's reporting he's gone. They don't want him. He comes back. They gave away his parking spot. They didn't have a locker for him, and he was telling this in an interview with Adam Crafton of The Athletic, saying like, yeah, there were kids in a lot, like the kids had lockers in the locker rooms that had been with the youth teams, never made an appearance with the first team, but I didn't. It's like, not only they forgot about me, but they didn't want me, right? Yeah. And if he was a little bit weaker mentally, and would have had every right to be like, all right, I'm out. Screw it. Let's go somewhere else. There's plenty of places I could go. He was like, nah, screw it. And he wins a spot back. He has probably the best season of his career with Juventus. And now he's maybe in his head he's saying like, I've proved all of that. I've proved what I could at Juventus, at Schalke, whatever. Right now, he would like unequivocally would get much more money in MLS. Yeah. And it's not what fans want to hear in terms of development and everything, but a lot of these conversations, it does come down to dollar and cents. And I know that's not I'm not the first person to ever have that thought, but you have to keep reminding yourself, we talk about what about this motivating factor or that or that or that. Like that number one of money for a lot of players, it really takes hold. And I don't blame anybody for getting their money, for getting their bag. And again, I think you could still be criticized for it or still be disappointed by it. But like that has to be said here. And again, Cincinnati will put the biggest contract offer on the table.
Are you shocked at Cincy?
No, well, I mean, like if you're looking at teams, who could it be? So, right, like I'll go super like inside baseball on this. So a few days before the report came out, I got a tip. Somebody left national team camp to go to Cincy. I don't know who it is. They went to something like that. And I'm like, who could it be? Yeah, I'm like, right. Haji Wright is like what I came down to is like Haji Wright makes the most sense. Yeah. They need a forward. He's in the championship. He like that's a player that they could probably convince to throw a lot of money at.
Aronson would have been the other one, although he just did the whole Leeds thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that he would have anyway. But like I was like, I'm looking at forwards. I was like, Josh Sargent, I don't see him leaving Norwich right now. Like, Cincy fans try to talk themselves into Gio Reyna on a U22 initiative deal, which almost made me break my phone in half because of all the DMs I got.
I love that.
But like it didn't even occur to me to ask about Weston McKennie because I was like, it can't possibly be him, right? And this was when the Aston Villa reports were coming out, and I was reporting on that too. And I had sources telling me that, like, yeah, talk to advance, we're almost there, or whatever. So, like, I was like, take him off the board. Like, the guys who it obviously isn't, he's one of them, right? Like, so it's shocking in that regard. But on the club side, Cincy are one of the teams that would put the financial backing to make this a possibility. And they do have state-of-the-art facilities. I've seen it in the YouTube comments. Like, that is absolutely something that they're trying to leverage. And the national team connections, like Miles Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin. I know he's more on the periphery now, but going down the list, Matt Miazga is also on the periphery.
But these are all guys that he's played with and knows.
And that's what they're going to keep targeting, though. So, like, this doesn't surprise me, I guess, in general, that it's Cincinnati for those reasons. But, like, the micro of what this group needs, I just thought this wasn't a fit for McKennie. But, like, again, with hindsight, you can talk yourself into it. You could tweak the system, or you could push him a little bit forward, or, like their central midfield duo of Pablo Buca and Obi Nwobodo, I absolutely love. But, like, no disrespect to Pablo Buca, but, my man, if you have the chance to sign Weston McKennie, you're not going to be the reason that this gets held up.
Shout out my guy, Oh Hi Danny on Twitch, who's like, I can only imagine Tommy Scoop having to wade through the lack of communication of just, quote, someone went to Cincinnati.
I was like, can you tell me? And it was like, no, like, I couldn't find out. It was just like, just the half truth. It's like, David Goss knows of just like, we were in a group chat where somebody said, oh, I think I know something, and like try to put us on a guessing game. And then I just sent back a voice message cursing at them and saying, I'm not playing your game. I'm done.
We also have a Cincy fan in the YouTube chat who's just says, get rid of Bupenza and Nwobodo, bring in Weston McKennie and Paulo Dybala, and just win the whole thing from here. So Cincy fans are feeling themselves, as they should, and it is interesting how you talk about it, which is Cincy have established themselves as a team that could be in this conversation, which I think we have to take a moment alone to like just celebrate them for that, right? This would have been a joke a few years ago, and not every MLS team could do this. If San Jose stepped up and said, we'll give you a $12 million yearly contract, I don't know that Weston McKennie would do it, because like the club's not built out in a way to impress him on that project. Cincinnati are there, and they are one of the teams that are there not based off market size and not based off like glamour overseas of what players want. As much as we can make fun of it now, like Jurgen Locadia was like an in-prime Dutch player.
I was all in on that signing. I was so wrong.
But like they spent the money, they got the player to come, they did that, and Bupenza as well, which has gone poorly. But like they've taken the risk, Brenner, and now they're showing that they're willing to do it again. Where some MLS clubs, we've got to recoup as much as we can out of the one we just lost, because like we're not going to get more money to be a part of this. True. So it's a huge just idea that Cincinnati's in this convo at all. My early take before it happens and whatever goes down. My early hot take is that everyone will be worse off for this, that I think this is not the path forward to Cincy being a title contender every year, and it's not Weston McKennie's path forward to be the best soccer player he can be. But I'm happy to be proven wrong, as I have been 5 million times before, including my mea culpa already on the show last week and 18 other times.
Why? Because Xherdan Shaqiri scored one time in the Euros? Yeah. I don't think he needed a mea culpa on that.
Sent back to the bench. I know. I went too quickly.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I saw that in the rundown last week. I was like, I'm not jumping on you with this one. I've refused to take the L yet.
Mets, Jets, and Knicks fan. The assumption is it's all going to crater, and I'm ready to take the L out the gate. You don't even want to know the mock drafts I've watched. But also, Liberty going for back-to-back Commissioner Cup championships later tonight. So that's one thing that I've got going for me on that one. Let's finish with Cincy real quick. Nick Hagelin, it sounds like he broke his fibula. I wrote it down and realized I didn't go and check which one's an actual body part. So whatever it is, he hurt his leg really badly. Miazga, we talked about last week. Miles Robinson with national team. Are there any center backs in MLS that you think makes sense, or any opportunity here for them to go out and get a player? Or is it exclusively going to come from outside the league?
I would assume it's more likely to come from inside the league. What's going to be tough is for them to find room under the salary cap, and a lot of the guys that make a lot of sense make a little bit of money. Like Matt Hedges is the really obvious one, because Austin just signed a center back, and Cincinnati had Matt Hedges in for his first visit as a free agent. I think they really wanted him. And then they decided we don't want to offer more than one guaranteed year, and Toronto went far beyond that, so that's where that one ended. But they might have a surplus at center back.
Yeah.
New England has a surplus at center back. 2 months ago, you could have gotten Dave Romney for next to nothing. But again, even with that, I'm not entirely sure how they can fit him under the salary cap, because these are players that are just above the senior max, like around the senior max, like that 670 whatever figure, right? Like,
and
I don't know what the books look like. I know it's tight.
It's a mess now because Romney's a starter, Arriaga's a starter. Kessler, I don't think anyone would
Too much money. He's like north of $1 million. Like that, just too much money.
And it would be wrong, in my opinion, to move Andrew Farrell with what he's meant to your club and what he's done for you. Like, I just think that would be a bad way to operate an organization, to like send him out, especially if it's against his will. If he wants to go, then that's a conversation I would have as Cincinnati and New England, saying like, oh, he wants to go and start for his last year and try and compete for a trophy. This team has a chance. Okay, that's fine. Sorry. Did you have others?
No, not really, because I think that you're going to bring up the one that you said pre-show. I don't want to steal from you because it was your idea.
The only one I came to was Josh Bauer with
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Lucas McNaughton's too good to get rid of him. Jack Mauer's on too good of a contract as a GA still. And obviously Walker Zimmerman's the core of your team. There are very few other teams that have depth at this position. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a position that is like a problem for most teams. Inter Miami, Portland, LA Galaxy, like RSL are starting 2 fullbacks right now at the center back position. So there are not really names out there. You go back to San Jose needing to like add to the war chest. Would they just give up on a center back? And are there any you really even want from that team? And you're still stuck in a situation where like Hedges probably style-wise doesn't really fit, but you just need bodies in that spot, and it doesn't matter at this point.
I'm working on, like, I think I'm going to do a YouTube video at some point soon just of all teams' needs, and I'll give a little, like, I wrote for Cincy a living, breathing, healthy center back. That's all that matters at this point. Just so, like, because Ray Gaddis and Albus Powell, God love them, they're going to try it, and they'll like, they won't be catastrophic, but, like, you need just a living, breathing, healthy center back. Just anyone.
Someone gave me its fibula, so thank you for that. And the last one I would name, the last thing I would name is, could you do a loan for one of the Montreal guys? They've got a lot of young center backs that they probably don't want to get rid of. Can you get minutes from, can you offer them saying, we'll give your player minutes in a 3 center back system as well? So like in a similar setup, just for the rest of this year, just so that that player gets some time. Not all of this is not ideal for Cincinnati. No. So all of this is a pretty bad situation in general. Let's talk transfer news here. Let's go to our transfer corner. I don't know. We're going to make up names for segments and do things like that as we go along. So if anyone has
sponsored by Asbury Park FC.
Yeah.
That's freebie for you, Sean.
Thanks. No. Talk to me. I'm running deals here, but I'm also wearing a Brooke Hatton shirt right now, so not much.
And also, I got a text back from my agent one time. It's like, stop saying yes to things before you talk to me. So that's a fair thing.
There you go. Now I'm one of those. It's fine. I'll lowball us because that's what I always do anyway as well. Also, Sean's a legend, so he gets free stuff if he wants it. But let's do transfer corner. Let's start Thiago Almada. What word am I using for this one?
Report. Do you not follow me on Twitter? Do you not see what I do? What is this bit?
I just make sure, because I don't want to call someone else a report and then you come off the top rope and you're like, that is a trash, garbage, 4th string Norwegian league level, person who I don't respect. Thiago Almada in conversations with this Eagle ownership group.
Yeah, this is just like bizarre, and it's been so weird. There's been so many reports that come out, and then I talked to sources in Atlanta, but like we haven't heard a single thing from them. We have no idea. Like, we don't know what else to tell you other than that. This morning I wake up to seeing rumors. This is where a rumor would be, where it says full agreement reached between Atlanta United and Eagle Football Holdings, whatever you want to call it. This is a group that has Leon, Crystal Palace, and Botafogo, and it was. I was like, have you like more or less like, all right, guys, like who's gonna report that there's an agreement reached when nobody's ever talked to somebody? And then it was like, we still haven't gotten a single conversation with this group. We don't know where this is coming from, to the point where the Eagle Football Holdings. It sounds so foreign and stupid to call it this. Whatever, Leon, Botafogo, whatever. The owner, John Texter's American guy. He comes out. He does like a selfie video that goes to YouTube. I just have so many questions about it. But anyway, like I appreciate him coming out and saying what he said. Like, quote, I haven't made the offer yet. And then he kind of goes on a little bit of random and then goes, I plan on sending the offer this morning. More or less. No, not yet. Not yet. I'm gonna hang up my little selfie video here and then I'm gonna send the offer. But so like I don't know what to make of this because
just make a lot of the offer on the video, by the way.
That would have been funny. He's talking about how much respect he has for Garth and Atlanta. I want to come in through the front door, all this. I'm doing it the right way. So I think that was probably like Atlanta, I promise it's not me giving giving bad information to try to put pressure on you, right? Like that could have been an angle too. But what doesn't make sense for me is that all these talks have been about him going to Botafogo first, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't he just go directly to Lyon? Like I think he's obviously good enough for Lyon. And if you're Thiago Almada, does leaving Atlanta for Botafogo, even if it's only for 6 months, does that make any sense to you for you and your career? Like I don't think it does. But like again, if Eagle Football Holdings are like, Lyon, like if you're gonna play in the Olympics, which he wants to, then maybe it doesn't make sense to go directly to Lyon. But like again, it's still convoluted. All of this is just like the BS meter was popping, and now maybe things will change with actual conversations between the two groups. But we'll see. Again, I don't entirely know what to make of this at this point, particularly because the reports were like around a $20 million agreement. That doesn't seem like enough. They bought him for $16 million, and the talks were teams like Napoli or Atletico Madrid or whatever. And so like $20 million to directly go to Botafogo, like doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's a weird one. These teams sit in a weird place in this group of like, they're obviously big names. They're not huge steps up for a lot of these players because we're going to talk Moise Bombito in a second, who also is rumored to be connected to this group. And then you get into, well, that means Botafogo, or does it mean Lyon, or does it mean Crystal Palace? And I don't think any of those are bad spots to play soccer. I would live in all those places and play soccer on all those teams. It sounds really sick. But
South
I think
London.
yeah, except that. But I don't know that it's an obvious step in the next direction for a lot of these players. And clearly, having an American ownership, they think that there's a gap to try and bring American players or MLS players in to this group and like move from there. And it doesn't make a ton of sense. And that's why I'm not sure if I'm on rumor report stuff with this one, because I guess you could report something that just will never happen and it's still reporting because
No, you call that a rumor.
Someone's trying that, or you could call it a rumor if you want. The Moise Bombito stuff. This, first of all, let's just like talk about the fact that a guy playing JUCO college 3 years ago and for UNH 2 years ago just went toe-to-toe with Argentina, pure confidence. Didn't start a fight like Richie Larea did, because Richie Larea always starts a fight, which is my favorite part about him. And I think it was Lautaro Martinez that he like got in his face and was like, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? What are you going to say? But he was awesome in that game. And then off the back of that, you hear this report. Is it $4 million?
So Lyon had an offer rejected by the Colorado Rapids for Moise Bombito for around $4 million. It includes add-ons and stuff. So like that's just a ballpark figure. I believe it was like just a little bit below. Regardless, not enough for the Colorado Rapids to accept. What they believe was, one, they feel extremely confident Lyon's coming back with another offer. Two, there are other teams interested, and the interest for these teams, it didn't start because they saw him at the Copa America playing against Argentina. Like, teams have been coming to scout Moise Bombito in Colorado all season. And this is like a player who has like 35 professional appearances for the Rapids. And like really over the last 6 months went from like, oh, he's an interesting talent, I really like him, to, oh my God, this is one of the best defenders in the league. For what the Rapids view of him, they believe we don't need to send him to a feeder club, air quote, right? Like a Club Bruges, like a Red Bull Salzburg. Like, instead of doing just hypothetical numbers, right? Like, instead of doing $5.5 million plus a 20% sell on, right? They believe if the valuation is met now, and the player would want to, like, Lyon is where he would go, is the overwhelming expectation. And it's more or less Botafogo's a fallback just in case at the minutes it isn't clear. That he makes sense for Lyon, and if they build up a big enough number, they might not have a choice but to accept it. What they do believe is we don't need to put a sell on anything, because if he stays here another 12 months, 18 months, we can just sell him directly to a Premier League club, a Champions League club. We believe he's that close, but he still needs to develop a little bit more, and that development can be served here. And now that might just be the argument that they're trying to make to Moise and his camp, and please sign another contract here and then leave. But we'll see where this negotiation goes. I'm going to assume that Bombito would want to go. It's very difficult. Again, like you said, playing JUCO 3 years ago, 2 years ago at UNH. Now Lyon comes in. Like, you understand why a young player would want to go do that. So we'll see where this goes. It's the first bid. It's not going to be the last bid. And this is a story to watch this summer.
He's a phenomenal player. He started as a center forward. He played center mid last year for this team and looked comfortable in a way in which it doesn't feel like that's his spot. But you just watch him and you say, if he's this good at this, he's an elite center back. Like the way he can defend at the center back position, but feels comfortable with bodies all around him in possession in central midfield shows you where he can play. I think he's also one of those players where if you're a club somewhere else, it's like if you put him in a 3 center back setup, he's going to be elite coming off one of those wide center back spots into the attack. He could probably fill in at fullback and do a job at times. So like he's flexible and all of those things. He's been phenomenal. It is the most Canadian MLS thing in the world that him and Derek Cornelius start for Canada right now. They might get out of their Copa America group and combine Montreal and Vancouver will probably walk away with like $100K in transfer fees for the two teams. Like if Vancouver got more than I'm even saying, they probably only got like 50 to send him to. Originally it was Malmo back in the day. And Montreal never had Bombito in their setup in any single way. Hence why he was a draft pick and Colorado's going to get this. That's just like a sidebar on all of that. So this is really interesting. I think if I'm Bombito, I'd make the aggressive move now purely because if it doesn't work, you have time to refine the new club pre-2026 World Cup. Because if you do wait a year and you move next summer, if it doesn't work, you're looking for a spot in January to play going into the home World Cup. And like, I know that careers are not purely built on this, but that's a once in a lifetime opportunity, especially coming from a country that has been in 2 men's World Cups ever. Like that's a huge chance. So that's the only thing I would say if I'm part of that group and talking about it, but you can understand from Colorado's point of view of like long-term career, it makes sense the other way as well. Dallas sold Jose Mulato to a team I've never heard of in a country I don't really pay attention to that often. Austin has officially signed a center back, Alexander Svatak, a 29-year-old Ukrainian center back at Dnipro right now, is at Euros, has not appeared, but started 2 and appeared in 5 European qualifiers for Ukraine. It's just at this point, fingers crossed from everyone that they are finally going to hit on a center back signing, and like it is a starting level MLS center back. Yeah,
that's the idea. That's the goal. And again, for Austin, it's been about like long-term building blocks. They've went at this methodically under Rodolfo Borrell in rebuilding this team. They didn't do it in one transfer window. Like he took over a year ago, so this is the 3rd one. But they've got Usman Bukhari, DP winger, club record signing already coming in. Mikael Dessler, a starting level right back they hope is already done and coming in, and now a center back that they hope to be again a starting level center back. So that's potentially 3 new starters, one of which a club record signing, all 4 weeks before the window officially opens. Like, we'll see how it goes, but like you can't fault them for the vision and the plan.
In the chat, RG Loss is saying that Usman Bukhari arrived in Austin today. So positive news for the team, and that's really exciting for them. Let's talk Aiden Morris for a second. Said goodbye to Columbus after being sold to Middlesbrough, played his final game at Lower.com Field this weekend, had an assist, brought off the field, really emotional. The fans, I think, at the 8-minute mark, gave him a round of applause. You saw signs everywhere from supporters about him, about what he did. And it was like a special moment. It's the dream. Like, this is what you as a club are hoping to build now, which is players that have come through your team and therefore feel a connection to your fans, to your city, and to the club. And Aiden Morris is all of those things. He had to live through the Save the Crew movement and was an audible, active part of trying to keep a team in Columbus. He then comes back. He wins an MLS Cup, but it's in COVID. They don't get the full celebration they want. It was this amazing moment for him as an individual that Nagbe, of course, had COVID right before, forcing the starting lineup, played one of the great games in MLS Cup history. Then he gets to win an MLS Cup at Lower.com Field, on the home field, in front of all those fans, play for Wilfred Nancy, show who he is at his highest level. Now he gets the transfer, and in it, I believe he said, I want to play one more time for Columbus and like finish this thing out at home. And you saw the emotion on his face. You saw the connection with his teammates. Like this is everything that MLS is hoping to build. And this was a really good moment, I think, for the league in general, but especially for Columbus from where they were 5 years ago to where they stand now.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And as you alluded to, and I was kind of reporting this throughout and at the beginning, like he left US U23 camp a few weeks ago to go to England to more or less finalize details and get things ready to go. He could have, like, this is it, deal's ready to go, I'm out. It was him who said, I want to keep playing for the Crew a couple more times, and I want to play at home. and they didn't have a home game for 3 more games. So this is a kid who, like, again, I didn't want to put any bad juju in the air, but God forbid he got hurt.
Yeah.
And he knew the risk of God forbid I get hurt, and like maybe something gets thrown in. Like a dream move for him. He's always talked about aspirations of playing Europe and continue bettering himself, all that stuff. He put that in risk because he's like, I care so much about the club, these fans, all this. I want to play at home one more time. So, like, look, man, I can be overly romantic about this game. That's just a beautiful moment, and these are the things that you love to see. Like I was talking before about how much money influences a lot of these decisions. Well, it's great that we get to come back around to a moment like this where, again, like he put like there was no monetary value for Aiden Morris in playing more games and wanting to do that stuff with the fans. It was just beautiful. I'm really happy to have seen that go.
And the final piece of this, which we're not 100% at yet, but we're getting close, is a guy like this comes back on the back end of his career to finish at home. Like we all talk Tyler Adams to the Red Bulls, right, to finish out his career. You talk about some of the Dallas guys, some of the Philly guys going home. That will be the end, I think, of that will mark that this has all arrived in my mind. Is if a player like this can go, have a successful career in Europe, and then their final payday is Arjen Robben went and did it in the Netherlands. You see players go and do it in Turkey. Like the MLS is a league that can pay enough, I think, to make that option make sense for a lot of these players, and then for them to do it in their home team and not like Clint Dempsey have to find a place that makes sense and go, which was awesome and great in Seattle, but wasn't his spot to go back to in the end. We have a question from Twitch that came in earlier. Early question regarding Olympics and Morris. When's the final Olympic roster release? / do we know if Burrow are going to release him to play?
I don't know when the final roster is released. I think should be soon.
Yeah.
And I don't know for a fact that Aiden Morris isn't going to be on the roster, but my strong educated guess is no, Burrow aren't going to release him.
I would say the same. And like, I wouldn't do it if I'm Aiden Morris. Go to your team, be in preseason, get comfortable, get minutes. That's your future. I love the Olympics. I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to do post-game stuff around. Like, we're going to cover it. I'm going to watch every single game. I'm so excited. The rumor is the women's roster should be dropping over the next week. So my assumption is the men's roster's along the same lines because the Olympics are coming up, hence the trials that are going on everywhere in, swimming and gymnastics and all of that type of stuff. But like, be the best player in the best situation at Burrow you can over the next year, where for some other players, this could be a chance for them to get a chance for a move or whatever. Like, there's all these different ways that this can affect players' careers, and I don't know that it makes sense for him in this situation as well. Let's jump into Copa America here. We've got Canada coming up, 6 p.m. Eastern time, so very, very soon against Peru. Maybe the biggest game of the group stage. I would say maybe Chile is, just based off the performance that we saw in match 1 for Peru and Chile. Let's start with this. What have you made of Copa America so far? Because I'll say this question comes from a place of like, I was worried that it would feel like an international window where like Brazil plays a friendly and Argentina plays a friendly and Mexico plays a friendly. And like those stadiums are sold out, but it has no effect on the larger conversation. And I think I've been proven wrong. I think what I've seen over the course of the nights coming out of Euros with not other big American sports going on is like people are watching this. People are talking about this. I think the atmospheres have been pretty good in general outside of like just play Ecuador on the East Coast. Don't make them go play in freaking the Bay Area. Like I'm going to go to Jackson Heights to watch the Ecuador game tomorrow. You better believe that. It's going to be sick. Why are you playing them out there? I wish there was a little bit more consciousness in some of this. But what have you made of it so far?
Yeah, look, I love the Copa America. This is awesome. Like you said, I wasn't worried in that sense just because I think Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador on the East Coast, like you could be playing your co-ed team, and I think that they'd show up like this. Like I think it's awesome.
They'd get worked based off what I saw last night. We play in and out of pressure as well as anyone.
And what I love just about international soccer as well is like James Rodriguez. Like I love watching that guy play, and it's so cool to see him still with the Colombian national team. His club career hasn't gone to plan. He's on like atop my list of like, God, I wish this guy came to MLS. Yeah. The opening game, like the obviously the U.S. stuff, the Mexico, Canada, we're gonna cover at length. So I'm like kind of focusing this question at the rest of this tournament, like the opening night or whatever, the Peru game, Chile, that was 0-0. Like that was boring, but like this has been super fun. Like I love these teams. I hope that there are going to be some players that MLS Cubs pick off, whether it's, again, obviously it's not going to be the guys like Endrick or Vini Jr., like the Brazilian stars, but like this is a valuable time to scout and try to make connections to sign players ahead of the summer transfer window. I don't know. Like, I don't have a great answer other than, like, as a fan and as somebody that works in this space, I just love watching this tournament, and it's just been wild. And I can't wait to see Canada tonight. That's like, I know that you have the quote queued up, but my God, I'm ready to go.
Let me just say this real quick. Hey, Brazil, not that easy. CONMEBOL, not that easy. Breaking down Costa Rica, not that simple. It kind of sucks. Welcome to the world. I thought Panama in the second half went toe-to-toe with Uruguay or outplayed them. So, like, yeah, you guys have all been officially invited to suck it. That's all I'd like to say on the end of that. And shout out to Costa Rica. Like, that's one of those moments. That's why I love these things, because it gives a team like that a chance to, like, do something that will be remembered forever, right? In 50 years, they'll play Brazil in a friendly, and it'll be like, these are the two results that Costa Rica has gotten in history. All these guys are going to live off this moment. A really young team. This is a team, by the way, that MLS teams should be looking at. And they may have already waited too long. Where, like, a lot of these guys that are playing, Saprissa, Alajuelense, all of this. Brandon Aguilera, I think, is a stud in central midfield. He's the next Borges. He bossed the U.S. in the final game of World Cup qualifying to get Costa Rica into the playoff. He's been at Nottingham Forest, but he's went on loan to the lower division. If I'm an MLS team, I'm trying to get him, whether it's on loan or not. And then, of course, starting a 19-year-old center back, wild in a game like this. And he played every bit worth it. Let's talk Canada, Peru. It's going to be in Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park. Josh Cloak here put the quote on Twitter from Jorge Fossati, the Peru manager. In predicting an aggressive game, he said, quote, "I know my team. They won't back down, even if it means using their fists." Ooh. So for starters, Jesse got his opening speech lined up for the locker room, because Jesse loves using the energy and all this type of stuff and make them feel you and get into them and all this, and feels like Peru's on the same page. But, like, Canada should be the aggressor in this game. I thought Peru played very neutral against Chile. This is a team that doesn't have a guiding light right now that they play through. Lapadilla is dangerous. It should be fine for Canada to press their numbers high and deal with it with just their two center backs. And that should be able to create some opportunities on the counterattack. The field should be better than what they've played on, and like what a lot of these games are, because it's at Children's Mercy Park, which is a good setup. This feels like a game where Canada has to, in my mind, throw everything. Like, play to the full Jesse style and play for a win.
Yeah, I like that Jorge Fossati has been watching Richie Larea, Tejan Buchanan tape, ready for the fight. It's perfect. But one thing to know, like, it's not fun to be weatherman watching soccer, but, like, it's like 105 degrees in Kansas City, and this game kicks off at 5 p.m. local time, which sounds miserable to me. This sounds like torture. So that's, I think, a little something, because, like, when you say Canada has to be the aggressor, I agree with you there. But also they need to not hit a wall in the 27th minute and then just get cooked in the last 15, 20 minutes of the first half. But for me, if you want to get out of the group, you got to win this game. It's just simple as. There's going to be some pressure. They've had positive performances. They've had it, like we talked about in our Canada preview last week, just a gauntlet of opening games under Jesse Marsch. So you've had those tests. You've had bad ones. You've had a good result. You've had everything. All right, now we talk about process. Everything keeps building, and that's all fair and true because the manager just got here. Now it's time for a result. Like, now, I don't care what the process looks like. We've got all the stuff like underneath the surface, a few games, everything else. We know what we want to do, but if we need to yuck up this game and squeeze out a result, that's how we do it. So for me, like, this is when you shift from process to did you win or lose, mate? Simple as.
Yeah, these next two games I think are both those, which is if you get out of the group, you've done something special for Canadian soccer, and like you've got 2 games to do that. Then you can go pay as much money as you need to play Brazil 15 times in friendlies and the Netherlands. But like that's what they had to do. It sounds, I think I saw a rumor that, or a report, sorry, that they're going to play the U.S. in the fall. That's going to be part of the U.S.'s. Yeah. So,
that's confirmed.
Okay. So that's a big chance for them to go and do whatever they want there. Looking at the starting lineup, I don't know that I would change a lot from what we saw. You're definitely not changing the spine of this team. The question marks become Tejan Buchanan struggled. Alistair Johnson's probably not your most dangerous player going forward. If you want to take some risks, you could start Richie and be like, we're going to be a little bit more offensive from that position. You could try and push Alphonso Davies higher up the field again and bring Richie in along that back line if you wanted to. I think that if you're Jesse, you're establishing that Alphonso Davies is a left back. I don't know that you change that already. Like that feels really early to do that and then step away from who you are. I think it's more like Fonzie, you have license to play high, like live high up the field. You are not really a left back. You are part of our midfield and go from there. Those are really the only changes I see. My guess is Tejan starts and Schaffelberg's just like, if it's not going well, that sub happens quickly, maybe even at halftime.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, I think part of the beauty, I guess, of being Canada manager is that, like, you don't have a lot of lineup decisions because the team is the team. This isn't Brazil where they're, Endrick off the bench. Or, like, there wasn't a lot of, like, oh, my God, who did they leave off this roster? Like, the roster is what the roster is, and more or less the starting lineup is. Like, there are these small tweaks, and as you said, the biggest questions were answered. Like, Alphonso Davies, what exact position is he going to play? That was the biggest question, really, for me at least. And like you said, Jesse Marsh answered that. He's been super public about it. He said it like directly. And so I think that you have to stick with that. And that's also why you have to stick with Alistair Johnson rather than putting another kind of overlapping type fullback on the other side.
Because he has to be that third center back and rotate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. Jonathan Osorio, a different type of player than what they have. That's probably a move you also make as the game goes along if you realize we need someone to play in between the lines that can sort of help create for other players. I will say this for the 500th time in the last 2 years. Jonathan David, play on the last line. Just be a goal scorer. Do not try and drop in and be a creator for this team. Last little thing to close out on here. We talked the rumors with Bombito. There are rumors connecting Ismail Kone. The Roma rumors have been around for a few weeks now. West Ham and Marseille, I saw connected into his name as well. I said this watching the France game to some friends, like, he can play at all of these teams. All of the names you're saying, maybe he's not a starter, maybe it takes a couple years, but like, he's that good. And he has shown in a very short amount of time, one of the things I always look for in players like this, which is how do you scale to a new level? Like, how do you handle being out of your element? And with Montreal, with Canada, and over in England with Watford, he has shown that he can immediately find his way through games, and then he grows in confidence and gets even better. So, like, all of those teams would make sense. It'd be cool to see him play at Marseille because that's just, like, a fun team to watch, and, like, the jerseys are cool and all that type of stuff. But Roma would be sick as well, doing, like, the Michael Bradley move.
Yeah, all of that's real, I want to say, too. And my overwhelming expectation is that there will be a move this summer because the interest is so strong. There was some hints that clubs might come in like this in the winter for Ismail Kone at Watford, that like Watford were trying to be ready for either a replacement or be prepared of evaluation. And obviously nothing like actually heated up over the winter, but like, again, these are things that happen over time rather than this is just a new thing. So like, he's long been on the radars of some of these clubs, and now with just the vast majority of all of the interest and everything else that's coming, like I very much assume that he's going to leave.
Shout out to all the people still riding with us on YouTube. I've been floating this a little bit in my head. We're going to figure it out. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll like cap the pod and like just sit on as long as people want to chat some days and be in the chat. We're not going to do that today because we got to go watch Euros and do other stuff. I got to edit and put everything out. So let me let you close. So I did a USMNT post-game show on Sunday night, directly after the game. It was live on YouTube and Twitch. We got some great comments in there, had a conversation with fans, as well as put it up as the podcast for all of you to digest as you sort of went along post this game. We're going to do that again on Thursday. I'm working on some guests as well for that, so it's not just me yelling at a camera, especially game 2, because I know Panama is going to be more frustrating than Bolivia, and like it could get dangerous for everyone involved. And I'm working on a Canada post-game show as well right now with some potential guests that I would be very excited about. If it goes down, we will tweet all of that out. Tom, you didn't get to say anything, though, about the U.S. Do you have any big thoughts that you want to throw out there before we roll in? And reminder, we'll be back on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so we'll preview that game there as well.
Yeah, I honestly don't have anything to add because I know that, like, I texted you this today that I thought you were excellent on that show. I was upset to not be part of it, which it's going to sound disingenuous because I'd say that if I was really, really upset, I'd be here Thursday. But I'm actually going to be at MetLife for the Uruguay game. So
I turned down a ticket. I want that to be known.
Oh, wow.
To the people of Soccerwise.
You're more dedicated than me. So, yeah, I thought that it was excellent. I would say I would co-sign pretty much everything you said. And if you haven't listened to that out there, go check it out. What was it, 30 minutes? So it's not like a huge part of your day. And I think it was super nuanced and super insightful. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, you're wrong, but I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Or whatever you actually meant. You meant to make me mad so that I would do an even better
It was
episode.
a rumor. And that's what that was.
Thank you. And that I appreciate. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for being here with us. We're having a good time. We're really enjoying it. Don't forget the Patreon's still out there. We'll be back tomorrow to talk the wild stuff going on in NWSL with Jordan Angeli. But for now, you've been watching Soccerwise. Have a good one.